I never thought that the smell of new cologne could change my entire life. The heat in Fort Lauderdale that July was unbearable. Jonathan, was editing another commercial for a local hotel chain, sitting in our cool apartment with the air conditioning on full blast. The monotonous hum of the computer, the flicker of the monitor, frame by frame of video footage. This had been my routine for the past 5 years since I started working as a freelance editor. The work paid the bills, though not spectacularly. My income was below average, but it allowed me to live comfortably in Florida and do what I loved. 3 years ago, I married Dorothy, who had opened her own photo studio in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Back then, it seemed like I had found the perfect partner, creative, ambitious, someone with whom we understood each other without words. We met at a creative industry conference in Miami, where I was presenting my work in video editing and she was showcasing her photography portfolio. There was instant chemistry between us. We talked for hours about art, composition, lighting, storytelling through images. Our wedding was small but beautiful. Just close friends and family on the beach at sunset. Dorothy looked stunning in her simple white dress, her hair blowing in the ocean breeze. We promised to support each other's careers, to grow together, to always be honest. Those promises seemed so real back then. The first 2 years of marriage were genuinely happy. We worked on joint creative projects. I edited videos for her studio's promotional materials, she took photos for my portfolio. Our apartment, though modest, was filled with our creative energy. Cameras, lenses, lighting equipment on her side. Computers, monitors, hard drives on mine. It was our little creative sanctuary. But recently something had changed. Dorothy started staying late at work more often, citing new clients and photo shoots. I didn't pay much attention to it. Running your own business takes time, I understood that. The photo studio required constant attention, marketing, client management, editing photos until late at night. Or at least that's what I thought she was doing. However, then new dresses appeared. Expensive ones. Elegant ones. Completely different from her usual style. Dorothy had always been practical in her clothing choices. She spent her days setting up lights, adjusting tripods, kneeling to get the right angle. She wore jeans, comfortable sneakers, loose shirts that wouldn't restrict her movement. Her wardrobe was functional, not fashionable. It's for the studio's new advertising campaign, she explained when I asked about another purchase. I need to look presentable for clients. I nodded, but something inside me became alert. The dresses she was buying weren't practical business attire. They were date dresses. Silk blouses with plunging necklines. Fitted skirts that hugged her curves. High heels that she would never wear while working with heavy camera equipment. These were clothes meant to impress someone, but clearly not business clients who came to her studio during the day. The next morning, when she was rushing to an early photo shoot, I noticed a new fragrance. Not her usual floral perfume that I had bought her for our anniversary, but something sharper, more provocative. It was a musky, intense scent that seemed designed to linger in someone's memory. This smell somehow made me uncomfortable. It was the smell of someone trying to be noticed, to be desired. That evening, when Dorothy was late again until 9 o'clock, I sat at my computer trying to focus on editing. But my thoughts kept returning to her changes. The new clothes. The new perfume. The late nights. The distant look in her eyes when she came home. The way she had started keeping her phone face down on the table. The way she had changed her password, claiming she wanted better security. Suddenly, my gaze fell on her laptop, which she had forgotten at home. Usually, Dorothy took it everywhere. She was paranoid about her client files, always worried about losing data or missing a potential booking. Forgetting it was completely unlike her. Unless she had been so distracted by something, or someone, that she had simply rushed out without it. I knew the password. We had never hidden our devices from each other. At least that's what I thought. My hands reached for the keyboard on their own. At first, I opened the browser history. Nothing suspicious, searches for photo shoot locations, equipment suppliers, Pinterest with ideas for shoots. Real estate websites showing commercial properties. Photography forums discussing camera techniques. Then I checked the email. Business correspondence, invoices, order confirmations. Everything seemed normal. But one email caught my attention, from Luke. The name was familiar to me. Luke worked as a landscape designer, and I knew he was Dorothy's old friend from before we met. They had studied together at community college and maintained a friendly relationship. I had met him a few times at Dorothy's birthday parties or casual gatherings. He seemed like a decent guy, friendly, outgoing, always with some story about a client's garden disaster or a particularly challenging landscaping project. Can't wait for next time. That spot by the pool was perfect. My stomach clenched. I started searching further. Messengers. Social media. On her phone, which she had also forgotten to charge at home, I found deleted messages that could be recovered through backup. The truth was all there, laid bare in cold digital text. Dorothy and Luke had met by chance a month ago at a pool bar in one of the hotels where she was doing a commercial photo shoot. He was there with a client, discussing a landscaping project for the hotel's grounds. They had a cocktail, reminisced about old times. And then it happened. The correspondence was explicit. Details of their meetings at a hotel with a pool in Fort Lauderdale, where Luke booked rooms. Photos that made me feel sick to my stomach. Messages about how she lied to me about shoots that supposedly lasted until late evening. Plans for their next meeting. Discussions about which room had the best view. Complaints about how careful they had to be. The most painful thing was something else. In one of the messages, Dorothy wrote, "I love Jonathan, I really do. But with you I feel alive. He's absorbed in his work, in his screen, he doesn't see me. And you look at me like I'm the only woman in the world." Luke replied, "Then leave him. Be with me." "I can't. It's complicated. Jonathan is a good person, I don't want to hurt him." "You're already hurting him by lying to him every day. He doesn't know. What he doesn't know can't hurt him." I sat staring at the screen, feeling my entire life crumbling to pieces. How long had this really been going on? Were there others? The messages only went back a month, but had she deleted earlier conversations? Had there been others before Luke? Then I suddenly realized, I needed to act smart. Anger, pain, betrayal, all these emotions were swirling inside me like a hurricane. But if I confronted her now, in the heat of the moment, I would lose. She would cry, apologize, promise it would never happen again. I might even forgive her in a moment of weakness. And then what? Live with the knowledge that she had betrayed me? Wonder every time she left the house if she was really going where she said? No. I needed a plan. A clear, calculated plan that would ensure I came out of this situation with my dignity and finances intact. Over the next week, I methodically gathered evidence. I copied all the correspondence, took screenshots, saved photos. I also installed a tracking app on her phone. Technically, I had the right to do this since we bought the phones on a shared family plan, and I was the primary account holder. The app was discreet, running in the background without any visible icons. It tracked her location, logged her calls and messages, even recorded which apps she was using. Every day Dorothy went to work, and I saw on my computer screen how she drove to that same hotel. How she spent hours there. How she then returned home looking like a satisfied woman who had supposedly successfully completed another project. The pattern was consistent, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, when she claimed to have commercial shoots booked. Sometimes Saturday mornings when she said she had to prep the studio for the week ahead. But I played my role perfectly. I smiled, asked about her day, hugged her at night. Inside me a storm was raging, but outwardly I remained calm. Every touch felt like a lie. Every kiss tasted like betrayal. But I maintained the facade because I needed time to prepare my exit strategy. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. First, money. Our savings were in a joint account. About $30,000, the result of my freelance work and the successful first year of her studio. It wasn't a fortune, but it was everything we had built together. I gradually started withdrawing money, buying precious stones through a jeweler I knew named Patrick. Well, Patrick was actually more than just a jeweler. He had become a good friend over the years, someone I had met through a client project. When I explained my situation to him in vague terms, he understood immediately. Diamonds, emeralds, rubies, Patrick advised, showing me his inventory. Easy to transport, easy to sell, hard to trace. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, this is the smartest way. I bought them piece by piece over 2 weeks. Each time I withdrew money, I claimed it was for new editing equipment or software licenses. Dorothy never questioned it. She was too preoccupied with her own secrets to notice mine. I stored the gems in a small box that I hid in my work office, taped to the underside of my desk drawer. Thousands of dollars in precious stones, invisible to anyone who wasn't specifically looking for them. Second, a lawyer. I found a ruthless divorce attorney named Hank, who had a reputation for being merciless in infidelity cases. His office was in downtown Fort Lauderdale, a sleek glass building that screamed success. When I walked in for our first consultation, Hank looked me straight in the eye. "Tell me everything," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "And I mean everything. Don't spare the details. Don't let embarrassment or pride stop you from telling me the full truth. I've heard it all." I told him. About the messages, the photos, the tracking data, the bank statements showing her purchases of new clothes. Hank listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on his yellow legal pad. "This is good," he finally said. "Very good actually. Florida is not a no-fault state when it comes to asset division. Adultery matters here. With this kind of evidence, you can walk away with the apartment, the majority of the savings, possibly even claim damages for emotional distress." We started preparing documents, gathering everything necessary for court. Hank explained the strategy step by step. How we would file. What we would demand. How we would handle her inevitable counterclaims. It was like planning a military operation, except the battlefield was a courtroom and the weapons were legal documents. Third, the apartment. It was registered in my name. I had put down most of the down payment even before the wedding, using money I had saved from years of freelance work. Under Florida law, with such evidence of infidelity in my legal preparation, I had every chance to keep everything. Hank confirmed this repeatedly. "The apartment is yours," he said. "She might try to claim she contributed to it during the marriage, but with the adultery evidence, the judge will rule in your favor. Especially if we can show she was using marital funds to facilitate her affair. Those hotel rooms weren't free. For 3 weeks I lived in this dual world. During the day I was a loving husband. I made coffee in the morning, asked about her upcoming projects, watched TV with her in the evening. At night I was a cold strategist planning my next move. I compiled folders of evidence. I made lists of our assets. I calculated exactly what I was entitled to and what I would fight for. The hardest part was maintaining intimacy. Dorothy still expected us to be a normal couple. She would curl up next to me on the couch, reach for my hand while watching movies, initiate sex. Each time I felt disgust churning in my stomach. But I performed my role because I couldn't let her suspect anything was wrong. I couldn't risk her deleting evidence or moving money. So I pretended. I pretended to be the oblivious husband while secretly documenting every detail of her betrayal. I decided to arrange everything during a party celebrating Dorothy's studio anniversary. She invited clients, partners, friends. And of course Luke. He was supposed to come as an old friend, nothing suspicious. Dorothy had been planning this party for weeks, seeing it as a major networking opportunity. She had rented extra lighting equipment, prepared her best portfolio pieces for display, hired a catering company to provide food and drinks. "This could really take the studio to the next level," she told me excitedly one evening. "I've invited some major potential clients. This is my chance to show what I can really do." I smiled and nodded, helping her plan the details while secretly planning something very different for that evening. The party would be the perfect stage for my revelation. Public, dramatic, with all her professional contacts present to witness the truth about Dorothy's character. That evening, the studio was beautifully decorated with Dorothy's photographs, her best works. Landscapes of Florida beaches, portraits of local celebrities, artistic shots of Fort Lauderdale's architecture. People came elegantly dressed, with wine glasses, discussing art and business. Soft jazz music played in the background. The catering staff moved smoothly through the crowd with trays of appetizers. Dorothy glowed in a new dress, probably also bought for presentability. It was a stunning red dress that must have cost at least $500. She had her hair professionally styled, her makeup perfect. She looked beautiful and I felt a pang of sadness for what we could have been. Luke appeared around 8 o'clock. Tall, tanned, with that confident smile that probably drove women crazy. He was wearing an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, smelling of that same cologne I had detected on Dorothy's clothes. He greeted me, firmly shaking my hand with a grip that lasted a moment too long, a subtle display of dominance. "Jonathan, man, long time no see. Dorothy told me your business is thriving." I smiled, measuring him with my eyes. This was the man who had been sleeping with my wife. Who had kissed her, held her, heard her say things she no longer said to me. And here he was, standing in front of me, pretending to be my friend. "Yeah, everything's good. And you? I heard you have a lot of projects this summer." "Oh yes, the heat is the best time for landscape design. People want beautiful gardens and pools." Pools. How ironic. The very place where he had seduced my wife. During the evening, when the guests had already drunk a bit and relaxed, I asked for attention. Dorothy looked at me in surprise. I hadn't warned her that I was going to speak. Some people were in small groups chatting, others were admiring the photographs on the walls, a few were out on the small balcony smoking. I clinked my wine glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. "Friends," I began, holding up my wine glass. "I want to say a few words about Dorothy. We've been married for 3 years and it's been an incredible experience. People smiled, raised their glasses. Dorothy looked pleased, probably thinking I was going to give some sweet speech about how proud I was of her success. Luke stood near the back, his expression neutral. Dorothy is a talented photographer. She knows how to capture moments that others don't notice. Details. Emotions. Truth. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. A few people nodded appreciatively, thinking I was building up to a toast. And that's why I want to show all of you the real truth. I took out a tablet and connected it to the large screen on the wall, where Dorothy's photographs had been displayed moments before. I had spent hours preparing this presentation, editing it like one of my video projects. I pressed the button. On the screen appeared screenshots of messages. Clear, understandable, with dates and times. The first few were innocent enough: great seeing you today, and we should catch up more often. But then they progressed. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again? That hotel room was perfect. Then came the photos, Dorothy and Luke by the hotel pool. Their embraces. Kisses. One particularly damning photo showed them entering a hotel room together, his hand on her lower back, her looking up at him with unmistakable desire. The studio froze in absolute silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Someone's wine glass slipped from their fingers, shattering on the floor, but no one moved to clean it up. All eyes were glued to the screen, watching as message after message revealed the affair in excruciating detail. Dorothy went pale. All the color drained from her face, her carefully applied makeup suddenly looking garish against her white skin. Luke bolted from his spot, trying to turn off the projector, but I was faster. I had locked the controls. I had prepared for this possibility. There was no way to stop the presentation except to cut the power to the entire building. "Jonathan, what are you doing?" Dorothy screamed. "Turn this off." "Why?" I asked calmly, my voice carrying across the silent room. "You're so talented. Aren't these shots worthy of display? They're real, emotional, full of life." Guests started nervously looking at each other. Someone was already hurrying to the exit. Several people had their phones out, probably recording this for their own social media. The scandal was spreading in real time. Hank, my lawyer, who was present under the guise of a friend, was filming everything on his phone for evidence purposes. 3 years, Dorothy, I continued, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. 3 years I believed you. Built a life with you. And you've been lying the whole time. Not for a year, not 2, for the last month, you looked me in the eyes every day and lied. Luke tried to approach me, his face red with anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell which. But Patrick, my jeweler friend who was also at the party and knew what was coming, stopped him with a hand on his chest. "Not worth it, man," Patrick said quietly. "You've already done enough damage." Dorothy was crying, smudging her makeup. Black mascara streamed down her cheeks, mixing with foundation and creating dark rivulets. Her expensive red dress suddenly looked ridiculous, like a costume for a role she could no longer play. "Jonathan, I can explain everything. It's not what you think." "Really?" I showed another screenshot, this one a message from Dorothy to Luke. "I love Jonathan, but with you I feel alive." These are your words, Dorothy. Your own words. Not mine. Not misunderstood. Not taken out of context. Your words. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Luke stood there, not knowing what to do. He looked like he wanted to comfort her but was afraid to make a move with everyone watching. The rest of the guests were hastily gathering their things, trying not to look at anyone. The catering staff had disappeared into the kitchen, probably texting everyone they knew about the drama unfolding. "I filed for divorce," I announced to the room. "The papers are already in court. All evidence has been submitted. The apartment stays with me as does the majority of our assets. You betrayed trust, Dorothy, and there are consequences for that." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, the voices of people trying to say something. But I didn't care. I had done what I planned. The public humiliation was complete. Her professional reputation in Fort Lauderdale's tight-knit creative community was destroyed. Her personal character was exposed. And I had documented everything for the divorce proceedings. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The weight of the secret knowledge, of pretending everything was fine, of living a lie, it was all gone. I had spoken my truth in the most dramatic way possible, and there was no going back. The next 2 months were a blur of court sessions, meetings with lawyers, signing documents. Dorothy tried to fight back, hired her own lawyer, but the evidence was unshakable. In Florida, marital infidelity affects property division, and the judge was on my side from the start. The photos, the messages, the tracking data showing her repeated trips to the hotel, it was overwhelming evidence that her lawyer couldn't counter. Luke supported her throughout the process. He came to hearings, sat next to her, held her hand. Dorothy pretended that this was true love, that she was happy with him. But I saw doubt in her eyes during those court sessions. What had started as passion and adrenaline was beginning to fade under the pressure of reality. The excitement of sneaking around, of stolen moments, of forbidden romance, all of that was gone. Now it was just the mundane reality of a relationship built on betrayal. Her studio suffered. The scandal spread throughout the city, clients began canceling services. In a small creative community like Fort Lauderdale's, reputation meant everything. Word traveled fast. Did you hear about Dorothy? I can't believe she did that at her own anniversary party. Her poor husband. The whispers followed her everywhere. Photographers who had referred clients to her stopped doing so. The local business association removed her from their directory. Her studio's social media pages were flooded with negative comments until she had to disable them entirely. For me, strangely enough, things got easier. The first weeks were hard, anger, pain, a sense of betrayal that kept me awake at night. I replayed every moment of our relationship, wondering which parts had been real and which had been lies. Had she ever truly loved me? Or had I just been convenient, a stable partner to build a life with while she sought excitement elsewhere? But then came relief. I had freed myself from a relationship that, as it turned out, had long been an illusion. I realized that Dorothy was right about one thing. I really had become absorbed in my work, stopped seeing her. But that didn't justify her actions. Communication could have fixed our problems. Honesty could have saved our marriage. Instead, she chose betrayal. When the divorce was officially finalized, I sold the precious stones, getting back all the money. The apartment remained mine. I even received compensation for emotional distress, a sum that would help me start fresh. Hank had done his job perfectly and I paid him well for it. Dorothy and Luke really did start living together. She moved into his house on the outskirts of the city, a modest place with a large yard that he had landscaped himself. At first, they displayed happiness on social media, photos together, romantic dinners, trips. But I knew the truth they were trying to hide. I heard it through mutual friends who couldn't help but gossip. 6 months after the divorce, I accidentally ran into Jill, Dorothy's friend who worked at her studio. We were standing in line at a coffee shop on a Saturday morning. The awkward recognition, the hesitant greeting. "Hi, Jonathan," she said timidly. "Hi, Jill. How are things?" She sighed, looking around as if checking who might overhear. "Honestly, Dorothy's not happy. She won't admit it, but I can see it. Luke isn't what she really wanted. He's controlling, jealous. Constantly checks her phone, demands she account for every move. Ironic, isn't it?" I nodded. The irony was indeed obvious. The man she had left me for, the man who had promised excitement and passion, had turned out to be worse than the husband she had betrayed. "She got what she chose," I said. "That's her life now." "I know. I feel sorry for her. And sorry for what she lost." We said goodbye and I left. I didn't feel sorry for Dorothy. Sympathy, yes maybe. But not pity. She had made her choice knowing the consequences. She had chosen passion over stability, lies over honesty. She had gambled and lost. And me? I chose to move forward. A month later, I took on a new big project. Editing a documentary film about Florida's history. The work was fascinating, creative, requiring complete dedication. I met new people, renewed old friendships that I hadn't paid attention to during the marriage. One evening, Patrick invited me to a barbecue at his house. His wife Megan was there with their friends. Among them was a woman named Rebecca, a graphic designer from Miami. We talked about work, creativity, life. There was no hint of romance, just a pleasant conversation between two people who understood each other. She was intelligent, funny, with a genuine smile that reached her eyes. We exchanged numbers, talked about possibly collaborating on a project. Nothing more, but the possibility was there. As I drove home that night, I realized, life continues. The pain of betrayal hadn't completely disappeared. It had become part of my experience, my story. But it no longer defined me. I was more than the man whose wife had cheated. I was an artist, a freelancer, a survivor. I was someone who had faced betrayal and come through it with dignity intact. Dorothy chose Luke, thinking he would give her that feeling of being alive that she felt was missing. But she didn't understand that the real feeling of life doesn't come from someone else, but from within. No person can fill the emptiness you feel inside yourself. That's something she would have to learn the hard way. I learned later from mutual acquaintances that their relationship with Luke was becoming increasingly tense. He turned out not to be the prince she had imagined in that hotel room by the pool. The reality of everyday life, bills, obligations, compromises, was completely different from stolen hours of passion. The excitement faded, and what was left was just two people who had betrayed others to be together, now living with the consequences. Luke's jealousy grew worse over time. He accused her of looking at other men. He checked her phone constantly. He isolated her from friends, claiming they were bad influences who would encourage her to cheat again, the same way she had cheated on me. The irony was lost on neither of them, but they were trapped in a cycle of mistrust that their relationship had been built on from the start. Dorothy's studio never fully recovered. She tried to rebuild the business, but the competition in Fort Lauderdale was fierce, and her reputation remained tarnished. Luke insisted she spend more time at home, help him with his business. Gradually, she was losing what she had built over the years. The creative independence she had once valued so much was slipping away, replaced by dependence on a man who saw her as a possession rather than a partner. For me, this wasn't a triumph. Actually, when I heard this news, I only felt emptiness. Revenge, if you could call it that, didn't bring satisfaction. It brought closure, the ending of a chapter. But not joy. There was no pleasure in knowing that the woman I had once loved was suffering. I had wanted justice, not her destruction. But sometimes justice and destruction look very similar. The most important thing turned out to be something else. I learned to trust again. Not blindly, not naively, but with the understanding that people are imperfect. That relationships require work from both partners. That communication is more important than assumptions. That honesty, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. That July, a year after the divorce, I stood on my apartment balcony looking at the ocean. Fort Lauderdale glowed with lights, the breeze bringing the smell of salt and freedom. The same summer heat, the same ocean view, but everything felt different now. Somewhere out there, in this city, Dorothy was living her life with Luke, trying to convince herself she had made the right choice. And I knew I had made mine. I chose myself, my dignity, my future. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that everything would be okay. Not perfect, not magical, but okay. And sometimes okay is enough. Life didn't end with betrayal. It just took a different path. And this path, though painful at first, turned out to be exactly what I needed. I had learned the hard lesson that love isn't enough without trust. That passion without honesty is just an illusion. That sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. I also learned about resilience, my own resilience. I had faced one of the most painful experiences a person can endure and came through it. Not unchanged, certainly. The experience had marked me, made me more cautious, more aware of red flags, more protective of my heart. But it hadn't broken me. If anything, it had made me stronger. The documentary project was going well. I was working with a team of passionate historians and filmmakers, creating something meaningful about Florida's rich and complex history. The work absorbed me in the best way, not as an escape from life, but as a genuine engagement with it. I was creating something that would outlast me, something that would educate and inspire. It gave me a sense of purpose that I had been missing. Rebecca and I had been meeting occasionally for coffee or lunch, discussing potential collaborations. She had a project about environmental conservation that needed video editing, and I was intrigued by the challenge. Our conversations were easy, natural, filled with laughter and genuine interest in each other's ideas. I wasn't ready for a relationship yet, and she seemed to sense that, never pushing for more than friendship. But the foundation was there, the possibility of something when I was ready. One day about 14 months after the divorce, I got a message from Dorothy. It was short, simple. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Curiosity, certainly. A small part of me that still remembered the woman I had loved. But mostly I felt nothing. The anger had faded. The pain had subsided. What was left was just a memory of what we had been, and an acceptance of what we had become, strangers who once shared a life. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. We had said everything that needed to be said in that dramatic confrontation at her studio. Anything more would just be rehashing old wounds, seeking closure that I had already found. I deleted the message and continued with my day. That evening I went to the beach. The same beach where we had gotten married, though I hadn't been back since the divorce. The sunset was spectacular, oranges and pinks painting the sky, the waves gently lapping at the shore. I watched the sun sink below the horizon, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 years of marriage. 1 month of betrayal that I knew about, possibly more that I didn't. 2 months of planning my exit. 1 dramatic confrontation. 6 months of legal battles. And now, over a year of rebuilding my life piece by piece. It had been a journey I never wanted to take, but one that had taught me more about myself than I ever expected to learn. I had discovered reserves of strength I didn't know I possessed. I had learned to be strategic, patient, calculating, qualities that served me well not just in handling the divorce, but in my career and life afterward. I thought about Dorothy and Luke, trapped in their relationship built on lies and betrayal. I wondered if they ever talked about me, if they felt guilt or justified their actions. I wondered if Dorothy had learned anything from what happened, or if she would repeat the pattern with someone new when the excitement with Luke finally died completely. But mostly, I thought about myself and where I wanted to go from here. The past was done, unchangeable. The present was manageable, even good. And the future? The future was open, full of possibilities that I hadn't seen when I was trapped in a dying marriage. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.